Good morning. Two people say good morning. This is a very interactive crowd. I'm seeing that already. But as I was up here looking, while the lights were down, the video was playing, I'm like, man, this is a good looking crowd. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take a picture of you guys this morning. I need a new wallpaper for my phone. I'm tired of my wife and kid always being on there. So if you guys, on the count of three, would just smile and say, cheese, we'll do that. Okay, you ready? 1, 2, you know what? I was kind of looking at the reflection on this. I'm like, my hair's looking pretty good today. This new beard oil, I think it's doing it for me. So if you don't mind, I'm going to be in the picture with you guys, okay? So here we go. 3, 2, 1. One person said cheese, really? Man, you guys are horrible. I don't even want you on my screen now. But I'm going to try to put it up on this screen just for you guys to check it out. Let me get it here. Let me see if it works for me. Got to go to the airdrop. Slowly, it's working. See, fancy. And we're going to have it here in a minute. It's going to be amazing. Any minute. It's going to be amazing, I promise you. It's going to be worth it. There it is, right? It's foggy. It's horrible, right? Look at me, I'm like, I have nothing against selfies, though. Like, when that first came out, that term, selfie, that sounds weird, right? But everybody's got into it now. Everybody takes pictures. They post it on social media, and they're like, I know if you're like me, I'll put something on there, and I'm like, is it working? Because I'm not getting any likes. It's been like 2 minutes, and nobody's liking it, right? And you get nervous. Then you start getting a like, and maybe another like, and maybe a heart. And you're like, yes. Then if you're like me, I get laughy faces. It's like, I wasn't trying to be funny. Maybe it's just the way I look. I don't know. But you start getting those things, and you get nervous because we want people to approve of us. We want to look good. We want people to think we look good. We want people to be like, man, I'm into that. That's awesome what they're doing. And like I said, I have nothing against selfies if you're into that, but I'm horrible at it. As you see in this picture, I'm like, huh? And I have some examples of my family's pictures. We take a family selfie, like last year at camping. Wife looks perfect. Son's making a crazy face like he always does. And I'm just kind of like trying to get in there, right? Looks ridiculous. Next one, Christmas thing. Son, crazy face. Kate, perfect. And me, once again, like a crazy guy. Huh? Horrible at it. What's really sad is my monkey takes better selfies than me, right? That's when you know you're bad at selfies. But we're going to talk about that today. Like, we all want to care what people think about us. We all want to be a big deal. We all want to be important. I'm going to kind of go into what does the Bible say about that. What does the Bible say about pride, being prideful? But before we get into that, this whole series has been about how to fight the devil. And if you was here a few weeks ago when I spoke, I talked a lot about the devil, so we would know who our enemy is. And I had someone say to me, it's like, I don't know if we really should be mentioning the devil. We don't want to incite the devil. If you say the devil a lot and you talk about him, he'll like come in here and he'll get after us. I'm like, the devil is not like Beetlejuice, right? You don't have to say Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice for him to appear. The devil's always there and he's always against you. Paul in the Bible actually says that our battle is not against flesh and blood. A lot of times we think our battle, we're always worried about what our boss, we're going, boss, I'm battle against him, or your mother-in-law, or your teacher, but we always feel like the battle is here on earth. And the Bible tells us it's not. It's a spiritual battle against the forces of darkness. The Bible gives us a warning in 1 Peter 5. It says this. It says, stay alert. In other words, always be on your guard. Watch out for the great enemy, the devil, because he prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Prowls around like a roaring lion. So in other words, he prowls around like a lion, cat family. He prowls around like a cat. God is saying the devil is a cat, right? And if you're like, I am a cat person, I don't like you said that. Hey, if you've ever tried to bathe a cat, you'll find out they're the devil, right? But the Bible doesn't say he'll go around like a mooing cow or a barking dog. It's cat family. Sorry, it's in there. It's in the Bible. I can't help it. But he attacks us. He's always looking for something to attack. The devil is like a shark. Sharks are always hungry. They're always looking to attack. And that's exactly how Satan looks at you and your life. If you're a follower of Jesus, he wants to attack you. And today I'm going to talk about pride and how he attacks you with pride. I read this quote last week, and I really like it. It says, "Pride is the only disease that makes everyone sick but the person who has it." Think about that. Pride is the only disease, the only illness that makes everyone else sick but the person who has it. Why is that? Because the person who has it doesn't even know it, right? You might be sitting here this morning like, I am not prideful. It might be because you don't know it, you know, right? And I talked about a few weeks ago, and we've talked about in this series how the devil loves to hit you. He loves to hit you when you're down. He loves to hit you when you're hungry, isolated, and tired. And so many times we can feel that. We can feel that. I talked a few weeks ago about how my mom just passed away a few weeks ago. And in that moment, when she passed away, you just felt like it's not fair. And you feel like the devil's coming at you saying things like, gosh, does God really care about you? Does God really say he will never harm you? Do you think God is on your side when something like this happens? And it's so true. The devil loves to attack you when that stuff happens. But the thing, I'm going to flip that on its head today. I will say even more dangerous is when the devil attacks you when you're on top of your game. And you're going to find out that you will never be more vulnerable than when you're full of pride. You might be sitting there this morning like, man, I don't have anything to worry about. My family's healthy. I have a great job. I have this huge retirement account came up, and I just really feel like we're doing great. I have all the hand sanitizer ready. I bought hand sanitizer early. I got the mask. I got the gloves. I'm ready for the coronavirus. I'm ready for whatever hits me in life. I'm ready. Nothing can attack me. And that's when the devil loves to attack. Trent read this verse last week, 1 John 2:16. It says, "For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world." None of that comes from the Father, but from the world. I was thinking about pride, and I read a story. I was kind of like researching some things about pride, and I came across a story about Muhammad Ali, obviously one of the best boxers in the world. There's a story. He was actually going to vacation, and he was on the airplane, and the light came on. Please fasten your seatbelt. He just sat there. Waited a little bit, came on again. He just sat there. And the airline stewardess was like, I have to say something. I don't really want to, but I want to say, like, Mr. Ali, you need to put your seatbelt on. He's like, listen, Superman don't need a seatbelt. She's like, Superman don't need an airplane, right? And that's good. I mean, we get so full of ourselves sometimes. We're so prideful, and we think we've done this or I've done this that we can't even see it, and it makes everyone around us sick. Today, I'm going to go back to a story in the Old Testament about King David. And the devil didn't attack David when he was down. I'm going to show you today that he attacked David when he was on his A game. And if you don't know anything about David, if you've never been to church before, man, we're super glad you're here. But if you've never heard anything about David before, he was this shepherd boy, and his town was being attacked by this army, this great army, and they had this giant. And everybody was so scared to fight him. And David's like, I don't get that. If you truly believe that God's on your side, we have nothing to fear. So fast forward, David slays the giant, kills him, even cuts his head off, and he's this great, everybody's like, man, this David guy is awesome. And he's a social media firestorm overnight, and people are like, David, we love David. He becomes king of Israel, and the Bible actually says that he goes all these battles, and he keeps winning them, and his mighty men, they come in, they just win these major battles, and they actually say women gathered in the streets and sang songs about him. Men in here, how many guys in here have ever had a woman sing a song about him? Am I the only one? Absolutely not. My wife might give me some harsh words, but she never sang a song to me. It wouldn't be a victory song if she was singing it. But that's how he was. He was on his A game. Everything was going great. In fact, if I interviewed everybody in here, though, you wouldn't think, if I asked, what do you think about David? You probably wouldn't say his great victories. You wouldn't say all the awesome things he done as king. You'd probably start thinking of the major sins he committed. Wouldn't that be an awful thing? You do all this awesome stuff, and what people look at you for is your sins. If I stood up here and said, what was my greatest sin? I'd probably run out the door because I wouldn't want you to know, right? But that's how they were. And if I asked everybody in here this morning, or when you came in, or I went to other churches and did a survey, I'd say, what was David's greatest downfall? What was his greatest sin? And you would probably say, Bathsheba, of course. If you don't know the story of Bathsheba, David was up on his roof one night. Remember, he's the king. He's got all this power. And he looks over, and there's Bathsheba taking a bath on her roof. Why? I don't know. But she was. And he's probably like, man, I'm the king. I deserve that woman. He has his servants go get her. He brings them. They bring Bathsheba to him. And fast forward, she's pregnant. She sleeps with him, pregnant with his child. And then David's like, he realizes what he's done. He's like, what am I going to do? She has a husband. So what's he do? He sends her husband, Uriah, to the front lines, has him killed. So he's like, well, maybe murder is his biggest sin. Maybe adultery. Adultery's bad. It messes up families. I've got people in my family who suffer through that, and it totally destroys families, totally destroys the kids. Everything about it's awful. Well, maybe murder is worse, though. I mean, there's nothing more final than death. If you read the story, though, you're going to find out how many people died from his sin of adultery. First, you have, of course, her husband died. He sent him to the front lines, having him killed in the war. And then David and Bathsheba's son died because God would punish them through that. And if you go on to read the story, there's 2 other people died, his half-son and his son, all indirectly from that sin of adultery. 4 people. And that's horrible. 4 lives destroyed because of one sin. But I'm going to tell you about a story today about David's pride, his sin of pride. And we're going to look at that story, and we're going to find out that 70,000 people died because of that sin. 70,000 people. So what's worse, adultery or pride? We're going to jump right in that. 1 Chronicles 21, 1 through 2. Says, verse 21, Satan rose up against Israel and incited David to take a census of Israel. So David said to Joab and the commanders of his troops, go and count the Israelites from Beersheba to Dan and report back to me that I may know how many there are. So what did Satan do? He came to David when he was confident, when he was strong, when he was victorious. And he said to David, David, we know you're strong. We know you're powerful. We know you have this great kingdom. But let's take a census to see exactly how many people are under you. I mean, we know you're powerful. We know you're awesome. We know you're dominant. We know your kingdom's awesome. But we want to know exactly how many people you are. So you know exactly how awesome you are. So was it wrong to take a census? Is it wrong to take a census? No. I mean, our government's getting ready to take a census. I see it on TV all the time. Census 2020, get counted. But also there's another story in the Bible where Moses took a census. And he would take every man over the age of 20 and give them a half shekel. This was known as atonement money or ransom money. And what was he doing? He was doing it to honor God. He was representing all those that God had rescued, redeemed from bondage. The census was for Moses to honor God. But what was David's census? Like I said, Satan rose up and said, David, you are awesome. And he's probably thinking, yeah, I am awesome. You're powerful. Yeah, I am powerful. Pride. Yes, I am powerful. Yes, I am this great. Let's see how many people I have. Let's see how many people we have under us. And you're like thinking, man, that is prideful, right? I've never done anything prideful in my life. But I was trying to think back of a good example of pride in my life. It can be even something so simple. Me and my wife have had a business for 15 years, a pet grooming business, and recently just sold it in November. But we used to go to these grooming, like pet grooming conventions, right? And you're like, that's pretty lame, right? They have a convention for everything, guys. You can be proud of that, right? Pet grooming. But we was there at this convention. I remember this booth we went to, and this guy's like, hey, do you guys work for a corporation like PetSmart or Petco? I'm like, no, we have our own business. And he's like, oh, you have a little business? So pride in my mind, like, I don't know about a little business. He's like, well, me and my wife did the same thing, and we got up to where we groomed 50 dogs a week. Pride in my mind, well, we groom 100 dogs a week. It's like, when we got up to this revenue, and we done pretty successful. Pride. I'm like, well, our revenue is quite a bit higher than that. And he's like, well, we go around training people about their business, where we train people how to run a successful business. Maybe we could set up a time where we come down to Ohio and teach you how to run your business. Pride. And I'm like, well, maybe you should be having a meeting with me how to run a business, right? And is any of that important or matter? No, but it's pride. And you might sit there today like, I don't even know if I have a pride struggle. Well, I have a test for you today. But these, up on the screen here, how your point system. So if you have a piece of paper or you got one of those cards when you came in, there should be pens in the back of the seat. You can use your phone or you can just sit there and stare at me. I don't care. But the system's going to be like, if you do this always, it's 5 points. If you do it frequently, it's 4 points. Sometimes 3 points, rarely 2 points, and if you never do it, 0 points. So when I read these statements, you think, do I always do that? Sometimes, frequently, blah, blah, blah. All right, go through these quickly. Number 1, in conversations, I prefer speaking about myself or having others talk about me rather than listening to other people. I like people live with me. Number 2, if I'm honest, when making decisions, I tend to do what I think is best for me rather than what I think is best for someone else or God. Number 3, when someone says I have hurt or offended them, I tend to think they are the one with the problem. They're just sensitive, right? When good things happen for other people, I tend to get jealous and have a hard time being happy for them. Here's a good one. I see this one all the time. It bothers me when I do something good and do not receive credit. You know why I see that all the time? Because it'd be like this. It'd be a homeless guy here. I'm giving him $1. Ching-ching. Take pictures of him. You know, you see that all the time because you want to get the credit. You want to say, when you've done something good, you're like, that was really good. That was really good. We do like that. We love it. Next one. I have a hard time giving compliments to others, speaking well of others, or honoring others. Next. I feel like certain menial tasks are below me and should be done by someone else. I hide my Christian convictions when I'm with people who might disagree with me, judge me, or reject me. 2 more. I have a hard time taking orders, receiving correction, or being under authority. Man, that's a hard one, isn't it? Lastly, I care a lot about how I appear to others, my appearance, possessions, and people with whom I associate, right? You kind of add those up. You don't have to do it right now. You don't have to yell out your score like 89 or whatever. But this kind of shows you how we think. Sometimes we don't even think pride is that dangerous. We don't even think it's that big a deal. We would never think pride is more dangerous than adultery. It goes on to say in 1 Chronicles, the command was so evil. The command was so evil in the sight of God, God punished Israel. Punished the entire country. It was such an evil sin. God hates pride so much that he not only punished David, he punished the entire country. And if you take time to read through that story in 1 Chronicles, you'll find out that 70,000 people died as a direct result of David's sin of pride. 70,000 people. So what's worse, adultery or pride? Adultery is pretty bad, but pride caused it. That was even the root sin of the adultery. Pride actually killed the 70,000 plus the 4 others because he thought, I am so powerful, that guy's wife should be property of mine, me. That should be mine. I'm powerful. Nothing can stop me. I am the king. Pride, pride, pride. We're going to find out that David, when he committed the sin of adultery, when he realized what he'd done wrong, he told Nathan, he said, I have sinned greatly. I sinned greatly. You acknowledge that. I acknowledge that. But then when he did the sin of the census and pride, you'll find out he added an adjective to that. When he woke up with that sin, he said, I have sinned greatly. The first time he said, I have sinned against the Lord. And the second time he said, I sinned greatly. He realized what he'd done. There's another story of a guy named Uzziah in the Old Testament. He did something pretty cool. He had this innovative war idea. And he rose to fame in 2 Chronicles 26:16. This could be us so many times. But after Uzziah became powerful, it wasn't when he was had all these troubles in his life. He didn't lose a loved one. He didn't lose his job. Is when he became powerful. When he became powerful, his pride led to his downfall. And he was unfaithful to the Lord his God. And I think that's the biggest thing of pride. So many times we think, I've done this, I did this business, I made this myself, I. And then we start to forget about God. We do. We get busy. You're like, I don't really have time for that right now. And we quit reading his word. We quit going to church because we're just busy. We have these things that's so important to us. That's what we're talking about today, the deadly sin of pride. In Proverbs 16:18, it says this, pride goes before destruction. Pride goes before destruction. A haughty or arrogant spirit before a fall. Pride goes before destruction, an arrogant spirit before a fall. How else can pride look? You might say, I don't struggle with any of that. I don't really think that way. But you might be sitting there this morning, as someone goes to church, like, you might be sitting here and you see somebody come in, you're like, man, look how they carry themselves. Look how they are dressed. Did you hear what they did? Did you hear they were addicted, had this addiction problem? Man, I would never do that, would you? Tell me all the details, because I just want to pray for them, right? I just want to pray for them. I'm not going to gossip. I just want to pray for them. Pride, pride, pride. Or you see someone asking for money at the end of the bridge, you'd be like, I would never do that. I'm a self-made person. I get out of bed. I work every day. Pride. I would never stand on that corner. Pride. There's so many places hiring. Pride. I would never do that. Never. Pride, pride. Or you might say, don't tell me this marriage is my fault. It's your fault. You don't tell me. Pride. You don't do this for me. Pride. I want this. Pride. Pride. How does God feel about pride? We see he killed 70, sent destruction to Israel, 70,000 people's death because of pride. Also, in James chapter 4, it actually says that God opposes the proud. God opposes the proud. Sometimes I think when we think of God, we think it in our earthly terms. We think like, I've heard preachers say like, I don't believe God would ever send anyone to hell. I don't believe there really is a hell because you wouldn't do that to your son. But we don't understand how God operates. God is so perfect that he opposes sin with everything he has. No sin can be even in his around him. And so God opposes the proud. And if you look at Greek words translated, opposes, it's a military term, and it actually means a full army ready for battle. God opposes the proud. And he brings a full army against you when you're proud. And then he flips that on its head and says, submit yourself. And the Greek word translated as submit is another military term, and it means to voluntarily rank under. Voluntarily rank under. Submit yourselves, rank under. Voluntarily submit to God. Resist the devil. Trent said this last week. resist the devil, and he will flee from you. He will flee from you. And we just can't kind of love God. We can't kind of love God, and we can't sort of follow Jesus. Like Jimmy said a few weeks ago, he talked about Jesus, and that's truly our answer to everything. If you're struggling with pride, Jesus. If you're having marriage problems, Jesus. If you're struggling with addiction, Jesus. If you're lost this morning, Jesus. And we talked about, after the first service this morning, in the hallway of our church, there was 3 people who just lost their spouse. The life is turned up on their edge. It's just totally ruined. One guy had to leave in an ambulance today, collapsed. There's so many people suffering, but the only answer is Jesus. Scripture says this, that friendship with this world is hatred towards God. If we get caught up in things of this world, and mostly pride is what we're talking about today, man, it's hatred towards God. It's hatred towards God. That's why we should submit, voluntarily rank under. Humility is the exact opposite of pride, and that's where God wants us. It's declaring our complete dependence on God. We need to submit ourselves to God. So why do you think that God hates pride so much? Why do you think that God opposes pride? I think it's very likely because way back before the creation of the world, like I said a few weeks ago, God created these 3 archangels, and one of them was Lucifer. He was this beautiful angel. He was the worship leader. He was worshiping God, but he came full of pride. Full of pride. And because he wanted to be like God, God cast him out. What was his weakness? What was his weakness? It's like our weakness so much this morning. He said again and again, I will, my will, I will, my will. 4 times in Isaiah 14, he declared his sovereignty. This is the devil. He said, I will ascend to the heavens. Pride. He said, I will raise my throne above the stars. Pride. He said, I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly. Pride, pride. He said, I will ascend to the top of the clouds. Pride. He said, I will make myself like the Most High. Lucifer was all about himself. To flip that around, how we should be is like Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane. We're getting ready to go into Easter season. It's just a few weeks away. And Jesus, he was sitting there. He knew he was going to bear our sins. He knew he was going to die for us. He knew he was going to suffer for us. And he cried out. He said, Father, Father, Daddy, if there's any other way, take this cup from me. He didn't want to do it. He knew he was going to suffer. And it says that then in submission to God, he said, not my will, God, not my will, but thy will. And that's hard. That's hard sometimes. When you know there's suffering, when you know you've suffered a loss or something big in your life, you're like, God, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. It's not my will. It's your will. And as I get ready to close, talking about pride and how it's so easy to say, I've done this, or this has happened in my life because of me. This is what I've done. I want to turn that around this morning. And we're in the Easter season, and we're in a season called Lent. And you might be like, I'd say that's more of a Catholic thing, but I think it's good for anybody. We're exactly 35 days from Easter. Lent is the season that talks about, and we've talked about this whole series, how to fight the devil, how Jesus was tempted by Satan. He didn't eat anything for 30 days. So that's kind of what Lent represents. Being humble, humility before Jesus. So what I'm asking everybody to do, if I had a next step for you today, is for this next 35 days, I want you to think of something that's really important to you. And I want you to give it up for the next 35 days. Now, I'm not going to say your family. Don't give your family up for the next 35 days or anything like that. But I'm saying if there's something really important to you, something you love to eat or something you love to drink. I had a guy from the band share between the services, something he's gave up and how it's really made a huge impact on his life. He's like, I didn't need to add my life anyway. I know I've gave up some soda, something I really like. You might think that's silly, but it's something, caffeine and all that. My wife's given up Facebook. She just deleted it from her phone. She's like, I'm not going to look at it for the next 35 days. So just something important in your life, just something kind of humble you towards Jesus. And every time you have that need for it, if you pick up your phone or Facebook, you're like, you know what? That's a good time to pray. Or it's a good time to spend a little bit more time with my family. Or maybe it's an unhealthy habit you need to kick anyway. Maybe it's smoking or some other addiction or caffeine or anything. You're like, you know what? I need to give that up anyway. It's going to be better for my health anyway. And it's a way to honor God. So for the next 35 days, I want you to kind of make a commitment to God. That God, you know what? I couldn't have done any of this without you. Everything good in your life was nothing you did. There's nothing I did, like nothing in my life is like, I did that. I did that. No, absolutely not. Anything good in your life is directly from Jesus Christ. So the next 35 days, I'm just asking that you give up something for our Savior, especially as we're entering the Easter season.